All right, so the solution or the situation in Ontario has gotten a lot crazier for the last over the last couple days, and this is from the Libertarian Party of Canada, and they say today at the Queen's Park lockdown protests following the conclusion of speeches, MPP Randy Hillier was fined for organizing the event. Translation: an MPP was punished for organizing a peaceful protest exercising the right to assembly. Let that sink in for a moment. Now, again, the first point that I wanted to point out is, I mean, it's somewhat similar to what I brought up yesterday in that freedom is dead in Canada. Again, this is something I bring up a lot, and again, a lot of people like to pretend that it's not the case, but if you can't organize a peaceful protest, if you can't have peaceful civil disobedience, you don't have freedom. You just don't. Again, a lot of people say, "Oh no, you can't do this, you can't do this." Well, no, it's one or the other, right? It's the same thing that I always bring up with free speech. It's like either you believe in it or you don't, right? You can't have and like I say, this is what people always will tell you, at least the people that are crazy, is that nobody will say they're against free speech. Nobody will say they're against this kind of stuff. They'll always say, "Oh yeah, I believe it," but they'll have this list of exceptions, right? And the list of exceptions almost always isn't an exception, right? Like when it comes to free speech, it's, "Oh well, yeah, I believe in free speech, but no hate speech," right? Or no misgendering, right? Like no, you either believe in it or you don't, and then eventually you'll make them look stupid on all that stuff, and they'll bring up, "Oh well, what about fire in a crowded theater?" Which again is a stupid example for many reasons. Number one, do we have any examples throughout history of anyone doing that? And if we did, I'm sure they would bring it up. So I'm guessing the answer to that is no. And even if we do, well, let's just say someone does yell fire in a crowded theater. Well, number one, they're probably going to be kicked out, right? And probably banned, right? Because they're all, I mean, I'm sure that's breaking the rules in some way or another. So I'm guessing they would be punished for that. And number two, let's just say that you yell fire in a crowded theater and everyone starts stampeding out and someone breaks a leg or, God forbid, like cracks their head open and dies or something, well, you would get sued, right? You would get sued because you caused the injury, right? So this idea that's an argument is that there's already laws designed against this kind of stuff, right? They also bring up that you can't a call to violence. Well, that's illegal as well. So again, like all the exceptions that they claim to bring up are either bunk, right? Like the whole misgendering garbage, or it's already illegal. Like it's already illegal to say, yeah, go kill this person, right? Or go harass this person. That's illegal, right? And the whole yelling fire in a crowded theater thing is already probably enough to get you kicked out of the theater and banned from it, at the very least, and at worst, it's enough to get you sued, right? So that stuff just doesn't make any sense, right? Like it doesn't make any sense. It's just hilarious having to deal with these people. And when it comes to this whole situation, is that everybody has already stated very clear as day when it comes to this kind of stuff that we are okay with protesting, and a lot of people have said they're even okay with violent protests, right? Like the whole BLM thing, right? Like again, the hypocrisy of these people, it really knows no bounds. It really knows no bounds, and that if Black Lives Matter wants to, burn down half the city, they can do that, right? But if you want to have a legitimately peaceful protest, and again, the mainstream media, they might claim, oh, it was violent or they're breaking this law or that law. Well, if they were doing something so bad, we probably would have heard about it and we wouldn't have had to hear about it from the mainstream media. So I'm guessing it was a very good, and not to mention, I've seen more than one event put on done by Randy Hillier, and they're always they get up there, they do their speeches, they cheer and they clap and they go home, right? It's nothing crazy, right? And the idea that we need to be overly worried about it really makes no sense. I mean, this is this thing. Oh, you're gonna it's gonna be a super spreader event, like that's what the idiots will bring up. But I heard a good point, and so it was. I think it was 2 weeks ago. I don't remember exactly when, but Clemson played Notre Dame. Two really big college football programs. And again, they have the whole. I think the stadium was only like 10-20% capacity, but still, that's probably a good 10-20,000 people because they got some big stadiums. And Notre Dame won. It was a big upset, and the tradition in college football is that when you have a big upset at home, the fans storm the field, right? I've even done this before, believe it or not, but the fans storm the field when you have a big upset, right? And that Clemson was the number one team in the nation at the time, and the fans gathered, and like the whole field was full of people, right? The whole field was full of people. So you'd think that if the virus was so bad that they would have traced a bunch of cases back to it, and up until this point, as far as I'm aware, they haven't traced any cases back. We're talking like 10,000 people all within the size of a football field, like gathered together, right? No cases, right? And so again, the argument that, oh, if 100 people get together for a protest, it's going to be a super spreader. No, it's not, right? It's not. If it was, we would be seeing massive amounts of cases being traced back to Walmart and Costco and Superstore, but we're not, right? Like we're not. Um, so again, the idea that there's any legitimate reason to be against this is absolute insanity. It's entirely ideological. That's the entirety of the reason these people are against it, and the reason that they don't bring that up is because it would make them look pretty stupid, right? Because they supported the BLM protests when much of it wasn't protesting, but they don't support this when it legitimately is protesting. So again, just more craziness coming out. And speaking of craziness coming out of Canada, this is from Global News, and they say a majority of Canadians say they still agree that with the prolonged shutdowns and restrictions amid the pandemic, an Ipsos poll shows. Do you agree that a 4-week shutdown of non-essential businesses to combat the spread of the virus? No, again, um, 10,093 votes, 54.4 say no, 41.4 say yes. So again, a pretty significant amount more say no. And again, this is a global news poll. This isn't a Rebel News poll or something along those lines. So, um, color me skeptical, but I call BS on this one. Like, I don't know about the other people out there. I'm guessing they agree with me on this, but do you find it a little old and boring and annoying? The mainstream media clearly just making up these polls. Now, again, they'll claim, "Oh, it's Ipsos. They're a credible organization," or whatever the hell they'll say. Um, but again, there's no way these polls are real. There's no way they're real. Because, number one, their own poll doesn't even show it. Number two, the people I talk to, the vast majority of them don't support it, right? Especially when you get people's real opinions. Like, the one thing I've noticed about this whole situation is that when you talk to people in big groups, like, obviously Thanksgiving and, any group above like 4 or 5, people are a little less outspoken, but whenever you get people individually, I've noticed that people are a lot more outspoken. Even people that I'm surprised are this outspoken, right? So I don't think that the majority of people support it. I don't even think it's all that close. I think that the real number is probably 25% of people probably support a lockdown, and the vast majority of those only support it because they watch CBC all day. Like, again, I think if all things being equal, if there wasn't so much propaganda being spewed at people, I think the number would be like 5%, maybe 10 tops, right? The only people I think the only people that support a lockdown, the only group of people that I think the majority support, it's the boomers that are just retired or are on the verge of retirement. It doesn't really affect them, right? Because these are the people that, and I think these are the people that are really worried about it because number one, they are a little bit more susceptible. Only if they're unhealthy though. If you're in your 60s and you don't have a serious condition, you still don't have anything to worry about. But again, these are people that are just retired. They still have quite a bit more life left to live, and not to mention, this is a group of people that I think watch the mainstream media the most. So I think that's why they're so paranoid. Um, and I think the other big group of people that are overly supportive of this is like the union workers and like pretty much anyone who works for the government, right? Because they're going to get paid no matter what, right? Because that's the whole point of being in the unions and working for the government is that you want to be able to provide the least amount of value but get paid the most, right? The whole goal is basically work the least, put in the least effort you possibly can to get a pretty good salary. Right? That's basically what these people's goal are. But I think any other group doesn't want, like, I've even I have a family member that doesn't work at a nursing home, but they have a family member that they see quite a bit, and most of the people they talk to don't even want it. Like, people, I mean, off the start, yeah, but I think that these old people already suffer from like I don't know if depression is the right word, but not being able to see family, a lot. But now it's even worse. Like, I don't even know. Like, personally, if I was in that position, I would want to see my family. That doesn't mean if I die a year or two earlier, I wouldn't care. And most of the people I've heard are in the same situation. I think it's the boomers that still have a pretty good amount of time left to live that are the ones that are most on this, because again, they're the ones that are usually they're just retired on average, right? They got a good amount of time left to live, and they're the ones that watch the mainstream media the most. And then it's the union workers and the government employees, right? The teachers and all those kind of people. So yeah, I think this is just another classic example of propaganda. Them just pulling some random number out of their hat. Obviously it's got to be a majority, right? It's got to be a majority, and then putting out their own poll and having it completely go the other way. And not to mention too, this is consistent. This isn't like it's a one-time thing. Like literally everything they bring up, it's the majority of Canadians support a vaccine like being mandatory, and then their own poll shows it doesn't. The majority of Canadians support banning handguns, and their own poll shows it doesn't. Like again, like it's every single time, right? Every time. This is from Barrett Wilson, a link to the Post Millennial, with a story titled Billions on Curb Payments Provided to Over 800,000 Ineligible Claimants. The number of top tax bracket earners, people who make over 210,000, over 14,000 people who make over 210,000 got curb. Again, like this is the problem. And again, like obviously if some people fall through the cracks, yeah, but this is the big problem with government is it's so willy-nilly, because there's no, like, is anybody going to lose their job over this? Is anybody going to get laid off or fired? Is anybody going to get a pay cut? Well, no one's going to get a pay cut. I mean, if anything, they'll get a pay raise because they'll have to pay someone to investigate it, right? Like or a group of people, right? It's just such garbage. Like it's such garbage. There's so many people suffering out there right now, and we got this garbage going on. Now again, these people they don't deserve to suffer either. No one deserves to suffer, but these people they got a little bit more room to work with, right? So again, it's just more insanity coming out of Canada. Just everything, day by the day, just more crazy stuff coming out. And again, this is from the Post Millennial, and Paul Hinman says here, constitutional law firm says they will challenge Calgary in court if they implement a circuit breaker lockdown. Jason Kenney needs to tell Nenshi that he has absolutely no authority to lock down Albertans. Jason, protect us, Albertans, and their jobs. Now, again, I don't know if Nenshi does have the right or not. I really don't. I don't know exactly how that works. I'm not a lawyer, and I think most people probably don't either. But the one thing I do know is that a lot of these people are abusing their power. So even if he doesn't have the right, I'm sure they're going to go and try it, right? I'm sure they're going to try it. So this is something we definitely do need. We need law firms, we need lawyers, we need people that have the expertise, that are on the record saying, yeah, if you do this garbage again, we are going to sue you. We are going to do whatever we possibly can to, undo this garbage. Because again, it doesn't make any sense. We've tried it over and over again. It doesn't work. There's no correlation whatsoever between lockdowns and a reduction in cases. And not only that, the correlation that we do have is there's a massive correlation between lockdowns and people losing their jobs and depression and anxiety. That's one thing we do know for sure. This is something I can't stand about the people that say, "Oh, well, it's hindsight's 2020." Well, the one thing we do know now, the one thing we know for sure is that if you close down businesses, depression, anxiety, suicide, people on the verge of losing their houses, that stuff's going to go up. We know that for sure. That's not hindsight's 2020 anymore. The one thing we do know for sure also is that there's no correlation between the lockdowns and a reduction in cases. Right? If you were to randomly put up different areas, not telling anyone where it was or if they had a lockdown or not, and the graphs of their cases, you wouldn't be able to tell which one's locked down. You wouldn't be able to tell when and where, or even if they put in a mask mandate. And if the lockdowns made a difference and the mask mandates made a difference, you should be able to tell with at least somewhat of a reasonable degree of accuracy which places lock down and when, and which places have mask mandates and when they did it. If you can't do that, there is no reason to do it, because again, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. If you want to do this garbage, you need extraordinary evidence, and they don't have any of. They don't even have anything, let alone extraordinary. So yeah, it's good news. Here. But anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. If you haven't already, make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms. If you want to donate, you can do that as well. Any support is very much appreciated. And like I say, at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already.